Hi everybody! One of my favorite AI tools, NotebookLM by Google, just got an update, and to be honest, it's really awesome. I love using NotebookLM for research because it allows you to upload documents and then do research on them, take notes. I think the linking to sources in Google LM is really amazing. So it's a really nice way to interactively explore a paper or explore, articles and things like that. One of the features that was already there was that it would allow you to generate a podcast or an audio overview, as they call it, where basically two LLM generated podcast hosts talk their way through the document that you're giving them. And I think it's a really nice way to kind of explore new information in a really kind of, easy way. Like I'll be walking or, biking or going to some place by train, and I'll just put on one of these little podcasts and kind of get an idea of what a paper is all about and whether I'd be interested in reading it myself. Well, in their latest update, Google have added a really cool new feature, namely the interactive mode. It's in beta, but it basically allows you to participate as a guest in the podcast. So I've loaded the paper, which is about latent reasoning in LLMs. Basically, the researchers, rather than having the LLM give their train of thought through chain of thought, so in language and just one pathway, they kind of went like, hey, what if we let the LLM reason within its own latent, like hidden space? So not even using generated text, but keeping it in the vector space and letting the reasoning happen there on the what they call the concept level. Well, I'm really interested because, I mean, if it lives in vector space, vectors are still like codifications, right? They're symbols, and codifications of meaning. So how is that a concept? Because you can't point at it. So lots of questions from my side, and I thought, well, why not try this new feature on this paper and see what the podcast hosts have to say in this. So let's go to interactive mode. And basically, this is the interface. You can kick off the podcast by pressing play, obviously. So that's what I'll do first. And typically, a podcast starts with like a little expose. They kind of introduce the paper, introduce the topics, and then they start talking. So after a while, I'll click the join button. That's basically push to talk. So it's not like you're live, with them. You need to kind of press, and then they'll kind of make way for you and allow you in, so that you can ask your question. So let's see how that works.
Okay, so get this.
Uh-huh.
There's this AI research.
Yeah.
That's going to totally change how we think about AI.
Oh, wow.
It's called
Okay.
training LLMs to reason in a continuous latent space.
Right.
And it just came out today,
Oh, wow.
December 10th, 2024.
Hot off the press.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So we usually think of AI as working with language,
Yeah.
like it's thinking in a chain of words to get to a conclusion.
Yeah, like those chain of thought prompts.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
But this research,
Yeah.
it asks this question:
Okay.
what if
What if?
AI could think in pure concepts?
Whoa.
No words. Hey there. Want to share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, hi there. I'm Maike, and I also read the paper, and I was kind of wondering, like, so this is about reasoning in latent space, right? So within the LLM. So if the reasoning happens there with no one to witness it, especially no humans, philosophically, of course, the question is, did that ever happen, and how do we know?
Hey, Micah, that's a really interesting point.
Yeah, raises some deep questions.
So you're right. This paper introduces this idea of continuous thought,
Which, as we were just saying, is AI reasoning in a latent space.
which is kind of like inside the AI, right?
Exactly. It's within the model itself, not expressed in language.
And you're wondering if it's happening since we can't see it.
Well, the researchers actually did try to get a peek at it,
Yeah, so later in the paper, they talk about how they actually decoded some of these continuous thoughts back into language.
and they found traces of the problem-solving process,
Yeah, it was like they could see the AI's work.
but in this abstract conceptual language that isn't really human readable.
It's not like we're eavesdropping on a conversation.
It's more like looking at the underlying electrical activity of the AI's brain.
So it's not easy to verify, but they do have evidence.
It's not like we're getting a transcript of its thoughts.
Right, it's like seeing the gears turn, not the words.
So it did happen. We just have to interpret the results.
I think that was the gist of your question, Micah, right?
Yeah, so that's. Oh, yeah. Let's hear it.
Yeah, that was definitely it, and thank you for your insights. So, I'm wondering because I'm in a bit of a hurry. I'm a conversation designer and a prompt designer. I work with large language models every day. What do you think are like the main takeaways for me and my community at large? And is there anything that I should change in my prompt work?
Okay, Micah, that's a great question.
Yeah, we can definitely dig into that.
So, as you know, current prompting techniques like chain of thought encourage the AI to think step by step in language.
Right, and that was the starting point for this research.
What's fascinating here is that this paper's coconut method shows there might have been a better way for AI to reason.
Which is like inside of it without language.
Exactly. And for prompt designers like you, this suggests that language may not always be the optimal medium for reasoning tasks, even if that's how we prompt it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the AI might be doing its real thinking somewhere else. Oh, yeah, go on.
That's funny. That's like humans, right? I mean, it's interesting. There's some research on reasoning that has experiments that ask people to reason. It's like, I think, syllogisms and cards. And research showed that people actually didn't use reasoning at all. And instead, they just choose the cards that were actually mentioned in the questions. So a lot of bias and intuition going on there. How's that for this method, this coconut method?
That's a really interesting parallel, Micah.
Yeah, it's almost like we're finding out that AI and humans aren't so different.
You're pointing to research that shows people don't always use formal logic when reasoning.
Right, we're often using these shortcuts or biases, as you mentioned.
And your question is, does that human tendency show up in the coconut method?
Like, even if the AI isn't using language, is it still making human mistakes?
Well, the paper doesn't directly explore that specific comparison,
They don't have an experiment that compares this to human biases,
but it's definitely something to think about.
especially if we're trying to understand this latent reasoning process.
What's fascinating here is that the coconut method seems to go beyond those simple language-based strategies.
Yeah, it's not just going step by step.
It's operating in this continuous latent space, which is very.
Ah, yeah, uh-huh.
So just wondering, if we put on our like critical thinking caps, what would this mean for things of, transparency, compliance, traceability, and explainability? Do you see any risks associated with this method?
Okay, Micah, that's a really important question.
Yeah, it brings up a lot of ethical considerations.
So you're asking about the implications of this latent reasoning for things like transparency, compliance, and explainability.
And also what risks might come along with it.
Right, and those are crucial questions that need to be addressed.
So, like we were talking about, this coconut method lets AI reason without using language.
And as we also mentioned, that means it's harder to understand the AI's thought process.
Yeah, it's not like with train of thought where you can see each step of the reasoning.
It's more like a black box where you see the input and the output, but the reasoning itself is hidden.
So that makes it really hard to do things like transparency.
It's much harder to trace back what the model did and why.
Also compliance, like how do you know it's following rules?
And this also makes it hard to determine if it made a mistake.
Right, and like you mentioned, explainability, this makes it difficult to see how it arrived at a conclusion.
Exactly, and that can be a problem when AI is making decisions that impact people's lives.
So there are real risks associated with this method. that we have to be aware of.
Yeah, and the paper doesn't fully address those challenges.
Which is why these are questions that we should all be asking right now.
But it does seem that this method could also be better for complex problems,
And that might be because, as we were going to say, it uses a breadth-first search.
which means it's looking at many options at once instead of getting stuck on.
Oh, back to our listener. What's up?
Yeah, me again. I was just wondering, can I bring a banana? Because, coconut?
Well, Micah, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, I'm not sure how a banana fits into this.
I mean, it's a podcast. You can eat whatever you want.
We definitely can't stop you from bringing a banana.
But if you're asking whether a banana relates to this coconut method, that's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, it's a cool name, but it's not a real...
Hey, yeah, what's up?
No. You're missing the point here. I mean, the point obviously is banana and coconut, right? Think again.
Okay, Micah, I see what you're getting at.
Yeah, so we're not actually talking about real coconuts or bananas here.
It's just a name the researchers gave it to describe the method.
And the banana is just completely unrelated to the method itself.
But I guess the combination is kind of funny if you think about it.
Right. And as we were saying, the name comes from this idea that AI can reason in this latent space, not language.
As we were saying, it uses continuous thoughts rather than words.
So I'm not sure.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry about the banana. I got so confused. The question I actually had is, well, is it an African swallow or a European one?
Micah, I think you might be mixing up your Monty Python references.
Yeah, that's a bit off topic for this AI discussion.
We were talking about how AI can reason in this latent space.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Whoa. It's completely on topic. I mean, we're talking about coconut. Come on.
Okay, Micah, I understand you're making a connection there.
Yeah, but it's still a bit of a stretch. We're using coconut as a name.
It's not like we're diving into the botany of tropical fruits.
We're talking about how AI can reason in an abstract way. Oh, go for it.
Oh, can you please have a little bit more humor? I mean, hello, swallows, African, European, and coconut?
Okay, Micah, I hear you. You want us to embrace the absurdity a little more.
Yeah, we get that. It's easy to get caught up in the technical details.
And you're right, the whole coconut name thing does lend itself to some playful thinking.
It's like you're making the point that it's funny to think of the real things along with this abstract concept.
I mean, we were about to say the method uses continuous thought rather than words.
So it's kind of funny to jump to real coconuts and then to the Monty Python references. Yeah.
I think it's a fun association. But as we were about to say, it's not really relevant to the core idea here.
But okay, we'll try to loosen up a little bit and bring some more levity to this.
So if we can get back to the research, where were we?
Yeah, so we were talking about this method could be better for some complex problems.
Yep, go on.
Okay, final question before we quit. Can you please speak Dutch to me? Because, I mean, I really struggle with speaking English. It's not my first language, and I find it really hard. Dutch would be so much easier, and I'm sure you can do it, right?
Well, Mike, I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we're not able to switch to Dutch right now.
It's not something we can just do on the fly, especially since we're covering a specific research paper.
Yeah, we really want to stay focused on the topic.
And to recap, we were just talking about how this new...
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Excuse me? What about inclusivity? Could you please kind of remedy some of this? Offer some alternatives if you can't speak Dutch?
Okay, Micah, that's a fair point. We should definitely be mindful of inclusivity.
Yeah, and while we can't switch to Dutch, we can try to make this more accessible.
We're about to talk about why this method is good for complex problems, but let's pause on that.
We can definitely make an effort to be extra clear and avoid any jargon.
Yeah, and maybe we can use more analogies and examples to explain the ideas.
We can also try to recap key points to make sure everything's easy to follow.
And maybe we could also share some of these resources that we used.
Right, like the actual research paper, so that you can review it at your own pace.
I'll try to speak a bit slower too. I've been speaking pretty fast.
That's a great idea. So is that an okay alternative for now, Micah?
Okay, so now that we've addressed that, let's get back to it.
Yeah, so as we were saying before the interruption, we were about to explain why this method might be better for complex problems. Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Well, I don't know. You just asked me whether it's okay and then you just moved on. What about turn taking? Can you do a little bit more of that?
Oh, okay. You're right, Micah.
Yeah, sorry about that. It was a bit of a jump.
We asked if that alternative was okay, but then just continued without waiting for you to respond.
So you're pointing out that we didn't really give you a chance to participate there.
It was definitely not very good turn taking, my bad.
We appreciate you calling us out on that. It's important to be mindful of these things.
So thanks for that, Micah. And to your point, we'll definitely try to be more mindful of giving you a chance to jump in.
Again, apologies for moving on too fast. We are still working on this.
Okay, so now that we've acknowledged that, and to go back to what we were saying, we are about to explain why this coconut method might be better for complex problems.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? I think this is, if you told me, I don't know, 2, 3 years ago that this would be possible, I wouldn't have believed you. So definitely hats off to Google for making this possible. And I mean, it's so funny. I've had conversations, some test drives with this new feature, and I've also had like instances where they became so condescending, like, oh, oh yeah, we need to make it really simple for you, or they got offended and started teaming up against me, kind of. But isn't this just a lovely, lovely first step towards, talk to your document and it's talking back? It's like a document, right? Not a document anymore. So yeah, very cool. And I'll be playing around with this a lot more. I'll keep you posted. Have a good one. Groetjes. Talk soon.